What happens when Hollywood's most beloved actress, known for her grace and warmth, walks into what should be a friendly morning chat show, only to discover she has been lured into an ambush? When Julia Roberts, the woman whose smile had launched 1,000 magazine covers and whose films had grossed billions worldwide, stepped onto the set of The View that Tuesday morning, she had no idea she was about to face the most brutal verbal assault of her 30-year career. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. It was a calculated attack disguised as conversation. A public humiliation attempt that would backfire spectacularly, and a moment that would force millions of viewers to ask themselves, when did cruelty become confused with courage? And why do we celebrate those who tear others down? The Paramount Studios lot buzzed with its usual controlled energy that autumn morning. Production vans lined the streets, crew members hurried between sound stages, and in Studio 7, the set of The View glowed under the harsh brightness of television lighting. The daytime talk show had been a fixture in American homes for nearly 2 decades. Place where celebrity guests mixed with political debates, where hot topics were discussed over coffee, and where 5 women offered their perspectives on everything, from entertainment to current events. Julia Roberts arrived early, as she always did. Professionalism had been drilled into her from her earliest days in the industry. Despite her astronomical success and the fact that she could make directors and producers wait for hours if she chose, she never did. Her car pulled into the studio lot well before the live broadcast, giving her plenty of time. She emerged wearing an elegant emerald dress that complemented her famous auburn hair, the color that had become as much her trademark as her luminous smile. In the green room, makeup artists fussed over her, though she needed little help. 55, Julia remained stunning, her face showing character rather than age. Laugh lines around her eyes, speaking to decades of genuine joy rather than surgical intervention. She chatted easily with the crew, asking about their families, remembering names from previous visits, and making each person feel seen and valued. It was this quality, this authentic warmth, that had made her not just a star, but beloved. "Miss Morgan, we're so excited to have you today," a young production assistant said, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "I've watched Pretty Woman probably 100 times. It's my comfort movie." Julia smiled, that famous smile that had graced movie posters worldwide. "That's so sweet of you to say. That film holds a special place in my heart too." The assistant added that Joy Behar was particularly excited about today's interview. And something in her tone made Julia glance up sharply. But the young woman had already moved away, leaving Julia with a vague sense of unease she couldn't quite name. Joy Behar had been with The View since its inception, her sharp wit and sharper tongue making her the show's most controversial figure. Some viewers loved her for what they called her honesty and willingness to ask tough questions. Others had stopped watching years ago, tired of her confrontational style. Her tendency to turn every interview into an interrogation, and her apparent belief that being provocative was the same as being profound. Over the years, Joy had developed a reputation for going after celebrities she deemed too perfect, too privileged, or too beloved. She seemed to take particular pleasure in trying to crack the polished facades of America's sweethearts, as if their very existence offended her, as if their success were somehow an insult to ordinary people rather than entertainment for them. And that morning, Joy Behar had set her sights on Julia Roberts. The other hosts knew something was off. Whoopi Goldberg, the show's moderator and voice of reason, had tried to talk to Joy before the broadcast. "What are you planning?" she asked, recognizing a particular gleam in Joy's eye and energy. That suggested she was preparing for more than just an honest conversation. Joy replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Isn't that what we do here? Have honest conversations." Whoopi wasn't reassured. But what could she do? Joy had seniority, influence with the producers, and a fan base that saw her confrontational style as courage rather than cruelty. All Whoopi could do was hope to moderate the damage when it came. The audience settled into their seats, buzzing with excitement about seeing Julia Roberts in person. Many had arrived hours early, some clutching photos from movies that had meant something to them. Others simply hoping to catch a glimpse of Hollywood royalty. Julia took her position just off stage, ready to make her entrance. She had done this hundreds of times: the walk-on, the wave to the audience, the settling into the guest chair, the easy banter. It was as natural to her as breathing. The show's opening music played, the lights brightened, and the cameras went live. "Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The View," Whoopi began, her warm voice filling the studio. "We have a truly special guest joining us today. She's won multiple awards, starred in some of the most beloved films of the past 3 decades, and has been called America's sweetheart by just about everyone. Please welcome the incomparable Julia Roberts." The audience erupted in genuine, enthusiastic applause. Julia emerged from backstage, her smile radiant, her wave graceful and warm. She moved down the short walkway with the easy confidence of someone who had walked red carpets worldwide, pausing to acknowledge the audience's reception and making eye contact with people in the front rows, making them feel part of the moment. "Julia, so wonderful to have you here," Whoopi said, standing to greet her, and they embraced warmly. It was clear there was genuine affection between them. They had known each other for years, had crossed paths at countless industry events, and shared mutual respect. Julia made her way down the panel, greeting each host. Sarah Haynes gave her an enthusiastic hug, clearly starstruck. Sunany host offered a professional handshake and a warm smile. And then there was Joy Behar. Joy remained seated while the other hosts had stood a small power play. Subtle but deliberate. Her smile was present but cold, her eyes assessing rather than welcoming. "Julia," she said, extending her hand, without standing. "Thanks for coming, Joy," Julia replied pleasantly, taking the hand offered. She noticed the coldness but chose to ignore it, settling into the guest chair with practiced ease, crossing her legs comfortably, adjusting her dress, and looking around at the panel with open, friendly expectation. Julia made her way down the panel, greeting each host. Sarah Haynes gave her an enthusiastic hug, clearly starstruck, while Sunony host offered a professional handshake and a warm smile. And then there was Joy Behar. Joy remained seated while the other hosts had stood a small power play. Subtle but deliberate. Her smile was present but cold, her eyes assessing rather than welcoming. "Julia," she said, extending her hand without standing. "Thanks for coming, Joy." Julia replied pleasantly, taking the hand offered. She noticed the coldness but chose to ignore it, settling into the guest chair with practiced ease. She crossed her legs comfortably, adjusted her dress, and looked around at the panel with open, friendly expectation. The first several minutes proceeded smoothly. Whoopi led the conversation, asking about Julia's latest film, a drama about family and forgiveness that was already generating awards buzz. Julia discussed the role thoughtfully, sharing insights into her character's motivations, talking about working with the director, and expressing gratitude for her talented co-stars. "The emotional depth you bring to your roles has always been remarkable," Sunny commented. "Even in your lighter films, there's always something real underneath. That's rare." Julia nodded appreciatively. "I think that's what makes characters resonate with audiences. Even in a romantic comedy or a feel-good film, people need to recognize genuine human emotion. Otherwise, it's just empty." The audience applauded. This was the Julia Roberts they had come to see, thoughtful, articulate, genuinely passionate about her craft. Sarah jumped in with questions about Julia's charitable work. particularly her foundation that supported arts education. In underprivileged schools, Julia deflected credit, as she always did, focusing instead on the teachers and students who did the real work, on the transformative power of creativity, and on how privileged she felt to give back in some small way. Small way, Sarah laughed. Julia, you've donated over $40 million to arts programs in the last decade. Julia shrugged modestly. I've been incredibly fortunate in my career. Using that good fortune to help others isn't charity. It's responsibility. It's gratitude. The applause from the audience reflected the warmth and positivity that filled the studio. But Joy Behar had been silent through all of this, watching, waiting, and now she was ready to strike. You know, Julia, her voice cut through suddenly, sharp and jarring. I've been watching your career for a long time, and I have to ask, don't you ever get tired of playing the same character over and over again? The question hung in the air, like a slap. The audience fell silent, confused by the sudden shift in tone. Whoopi's eyes widened slightly, and Sarah and Sunny exchanged uncomfortable glances. Julia's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered, letting out a small, uncertain laugh. I'm not sure what you mean, Joy, she said carefully. I've tried to take on a variety of roles throughout my career. Oh, come on, Joy pressed, leaning forward with a grin that carried no warmth. The romantic lead, the girl next door with a big smile, the woman who finds love and happiness sits the same thing. Different movie, different costume. Don't you think audiences deserve more from someone with your supposed talent? The word supposed landed like a bomb. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the interview veering into dangerous territory. Julia has shown incredible range in her filmography. She tried to interject, but Joy wasn't finished. If anything, Whoopi's intervention seemed to embolden her. Let's be honest here, Joy continued, her voice adopting a false reasonableness that barely concealed aggression. You've made a career out of being America's sweetheart. But what happens when America gets tired of sweet? What happens when they want something real, something authentic, something that isn't just another pretty smile selling them a fantasy? Julia's posture straightened, her trademark smile disappearing completely, replaced by something harder, more guarded. When she spoke, her voice remained controlled, but there was a steel beneath it. I think my work speaks for itself, she said. I've always tried to bring authenticity to every role I play, to find the truth in every character, regardless of the genre. Authenticity. Joy laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that made several audience members wince. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, looks more like you've been playing the same version of yourself for 30 years, the pretty woman. The romantic fantasy, the unattainable ideal that makes real women feel inadequate by comparison. The atmosphere in the studio shifted completely. What had been a pleasant interview had become something else entirely, an ambush, a public humiliation attempt unfolding in real time. Sunny tried desperately to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Julia, why don't you tell us about your upcoming projects? I know you have some exciting things in the works. But Joy wasn't about to let the conversation shift. She had been planning this, preparing for it, was determined to see it through, regardless of how uncomfortable everyone else became. Actually, let's talk about something else, she said, her voice taking on an even more aggressive edge. Let's talk about privilege. Let's talk about how easy it is to maintain a perfect image when you've never had to face real adversity, real struggle, real life. Julia's eyes flashed with anger, hurt, and disbelief all at once. Excuse me, she said quietly, her voice dropping to a level that somehow carried more weight than shouting would have. You heard me? Joy continued, seemingly emboldened by Julia's reaction, feeding off the discomfort she was creating. You've lived a charmed life, Julia. Born beautiful, discovered young, handed success on a silver platter. What do you know about struggle? What do you know about the real world that the rest of us live in? What qualifies you to play all these roles about overcoming adversity when you've never actually had to overcome anything? Asterisk, the audience was completely silent now, no longer confused, but genuinely shocked. This had crossed far beyond tough questioning into something personal, vindictive, and deliberately cruel. Camera operators instinctively adjusted their positions, sensing they might be capturing something historic, but not in a good way. Julia took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain her composure. Her hands, previously relaxed in her lap, had tightened into fists, knuckles white against the emerald fabric of her dress. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but carried an underlying edge that suggested she was holding back far more than she was expressing. Asterisk. Joy, I think you're making some very unfair assumptions about my life, Julia said carefully, each word measured. You don't know anything about my journey or the challenges I've faced, do you? Joy shot back immediately, as if she had been waiting for exactly this response. Because from where I'm sitting, your biggest challenge has been choosing which mansion to live in, which designer dress to wear, which premiere to attend, which multi-million-dollar role to accept next. Asterisk. Whoopi finally stepped in more forcefully, her voice carrying the authority of 2 decades of hosting. Okay, Joy, I think we need to asterisk. No, Whoopi, Joy interrupted, not even looking at her colleague. I think it's time someone asked the hard questions. I think it's time someone called out this whole perfect princess act for what it really is, a carefully constructed lie designed to sell movie tickets to people who should know better. Julia's face had gone pale, but her voice remained controlled, though the effort was evident. I've never pretended to be perfect, Joy. I've been open about my mistakes, my struggles, my growth as a person and an artist. Asterisk. Have you, though? Joy challenged, leaning forward, her body language aggressive and confrontational. Or have you just fed the public the sanitized, publicist-approved version of your life? When was the last time you showed us the real Julia Roberts, not the manufactured product designed to be palatable to mass audiences? The tension in the studio was palpable, almost suffocating. Crew members froze at their posts, unsure whether to intervene or let the disaster unfold. Sarah looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Sunny's face showed genuine distress. And Whoopi appeared to be calculating whether stopping the interview would cause more damage than letting it continue. Asterisk. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Julia said, her voice finally showing signs of strain from the emotional toll this was taking. I came here today to talk about my work, to connect with your audience, not to be personally attacked on live television. Joy leaned back in her chair with visible satisfaction, clearly enjoying the discomfort she was causing, feeding off it, like sustenance. Asterisk. Double quotes. Oh, is that what this is? An attack? She said with mock innocence. I thought this was just honest conversation. Isn't that what talk shows are supposed to be about? Honesty, real dialogue. Or do you only want to participate in conversations where everyone tells you how wonderful you are? Asterisk. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, Joy, Julia replied, her composure beginning to crack, emotion breaking through the professional facade. There's a difference between asking tough questions and deliberately trying to hurt someone for your own entertainment. Asterisk. Hurt someone. Joy laughed again, that same harsh, cutting sound making everyone uncomfortable. Sweetie, if a few honest observations hurt your feelings, maybe you're not as strong as you pretend to be. Maybe that's the real issue here. You can't handle reality intruding on your carefully constructed fantasy world. The words hung in the air like a physical slap, and Julia's face flushed red. The entire studio seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how Hollywood sweetheart would respond to such a direct personal insult, delivered live to millions of viewers. Strong. Julia repeated slowly, her voice dropping to a dangerously quiet level that somehow carried more power than any amount of shouting. You want to talk about strength, Joy? Let me tell you something about real strength. The confrontation had reached its breaking point, the moment where pretense falls away and raw truth emerges. Joy Behar had pushed and pushed, assuming that Julia, trained by decades in Hollywood to smile and deflect, would never truly push back. She had miscalculated badly, underestimating the steel beneath the silk, the fire beneath the warmth. Julia's voice, when she continued, carried a weight that made everyone in the studio lean forward unconsciously. Strength is sitting here and listening to you tear me down for no reason other than your own entertainment. Strength is not responding to your cruelty with cruelty of my own. Strength is maintaining my dignity in the face of someone who's clearly forgotten what dignity means. Joy's eyes lit up with what could only be described as malicious delight. As if Julia's response was exactly what she had been waiting for, trying to provoke all along. "Oh, now we're getting somewhere," she exclaimed, her voice rising with excitement. "There's that fire I knew was hiding under all that sweetness and light. Tell me, Julia, how does it feel to finally drop the act?" This isn't an act, Julia said, her voice rising slightly despite her efforts to maintain control. "This is me trying to maintain some semblance of professionalism in the face of your unprovoked hostility. This is me trying to remember that. I came here as a guest, not as a target. Unprovoked." Joy scoffed, her expression one of theatrical disbelief. "Everything I've said today has been fair game. You're a public figure, sweetheart. You put yourself out there. You open yourself up to criticism. That's the price of fame. And if you can't handle it, maybe you shouldn't be in this business." Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear through her chair. "Maybe we should take a quick break," she suggested weakly, glancing desperately at the show's director. No breaks, Joy declared, waving her hand dismissively like a queen, ignoring the concerns of those around her. "We're just getting started, Julia. I'm sorry, Julia. Let's talk about your image. Let's talk about how much of your success is based on being pretty versus actually being talented." The gasp from the audience was audible. Several people, looking genuinely angry not at Julia, but at Joy, who seemed determined to destroy someone for no reason other than she could. Whoopi's voice cut through sharply, rare authority in her tone. "Joy, that's enough. This has gone too far." But Joy ignored her, focused entirely on Julia, like a predator that had caught the scent of blood. "I'm just asking questions everyone is thinking, but nobody has the guts to ask. How much of your career is based on your looks? How much is based on playing into male fantasies of the perfect woman? How much is actually based on talent?" Julia's jaw tightened, her hands gripping the arms of her chair so hard it seemed she might crush the wood seam.